Welcome to the third part of our study into the origins of Christianity. We'll be looking at the ancient mystery religions. In the 4th century BC, Plato wrote, "They redeem us from the pains of hell." And we're going to see many similarities between the ancient religions and Christianity. This is Osiris judging the dead. Plutarch was a priest at Delphi who worshipped Osiris and Isis. He explained that the worship of Isis was mystic union with the immaterial, eternal word or reason. The Greek word was logos, the same word we find in the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the word, logos. According to Plutarch, Isis was an eternal, immaterial, simple, shining, pure spirit. The worship of Isis and Osiris wasn't about magic fables. It was about mystic union of the striving human soul with the eternal transcendent God. While we are alive, says Plutarch, we strive for union with God. After we die, he says, our souls leave our bodies and travel to be with God, where our souls will spend eternity contemplating the unutterable, indescribable niceness of God. Sound familiar? I thought so. Our souls are divine and strive for union with God. After we die, we travel to heaven to spend eternity contemplating the unutterable, indescribable glory of God. That was ancient religion? Yes, that was ancient mystery religion. Mystery religions look very familiar to us. They had ethics and morality. They had a personal relationship with a God-man or woman who had lived life on earth. The God-man offered a better deal in the eternal life after death, but not to everyone, only to believers who joined his faith in a special initiation ceremony, like the one Apuleius describes as a kind of voluntary death and salvation through divine grace. Remember, we're talking hundreds of years BC here. And there wasn't one mystery religion, there were many. Isis had mysteries, so did Dionysus. So did the unnamed gods at Samothrace. Lots of gods had secret mysteries. The Roman writer Apuleius, famous for his book Metamorphoses, describes the initiation into the mysteries of Isis. The keys of hell and the guarantee of salvation were in the hands of the goddess, and the initiation ceremony itself a kind of voluntary death and salvation through divine grace. Our Christianity doesn't come out of nowhere with Jesus. It comes from the accumulation of legends and theologies by ancient people who believed in Jesus. The origin of those legends and theologies wasn't Jesus. The origin was the myths, legends, philosophies, prejudices, literature, superstitions, and primitive cosmology of ancient Western culture. Christianity was a product of its time and place. Direct evidence of how Christianity began? Well, there is none. There is no record written by people who were there at the beginning. Jesus left no written record. The people who knew Jesus left no written record. The birth of Christianity is described in no contemporary record. Despite all the supposed miracles and crowds, not one historian who lived at the time wrote anything about Jesus. Our surviving Christian stories about the Galilean Jesus, Mary and Joseph, the virgin birth, miracles, the sayings, the crucifixion in Jerusalem, cannot be definitely dated before the middle decades of the 2nd century, although wishful Christians imagine them being written only decades, a generation or two, after the events. Whichever is true, our surviving Christian record is one sectarian story from among the many sectarian legends of origin. By the time our earliest written records of Christianity, Paul's letters, were created, Christianity had already splintered into several groups. Paul attacks these other groups, so we do know they existed. By the time our version of Christianity used the power of Roman swords to make itself the official version, there were dozens of varieties of Christianity. At the urging of Roman priests, Roman emperors suppressed the other Christianity's legends of origin. One legend survived, our legend. This isn't what they told you at Bible school. It is, however, the unavoidable conclusion of modern New Testament scholarship. The books that ended up in our New Testament were finally settled on by a committee of Roman Catholic priests in the 4th century, among other reasons, specifically because they agreed with Roman Catholic dogma. The earliest books are the letters of Paul. The writers of the Gospels are anonymous. They were given the names Matthew, Mark, Luke and John later. It's thought that all the Gospels were written a considerable time after Jesus lived, perhaps in the 2nd century AD. No other writer mentions them or quotes them until well after this time. The earliest was Mark. The Jewish historian Josephus, who was born shortly after Jesus' death, wrote hundreds of pages about 1st century Judea, including John the Baptist, including other 1st century Jewish messiahs, but about Jesus nothing, except for 2 sentences widely regarded as being forged, generally accepted to have been inserted later. And about the early Christians, nothing. Other Gospels and Acts, well, there are quite a lot of these. Not all of them survive. Some were burned or simply not copied. We know about these because of references to them. They include many. Here's a list. Many of these books have real differences from the official version we know. For example, in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus brings salvation in the form of saving wisdom. His saving death isn't part of Thomas's version of the story. A reminder, the whole point of Christianity is supposedly our salvation by a loving God. Why is there so much confusion, so little clarity? Surely he would have kept it unambiguous, simple, and leave much less room for doubt. Anyone could be forgiven for doubting based on the evidence we have. Again, the only conclusion is that Christianity was a myth, like all the others. God is imaginary.